Like it's like a marriage. You need to go to dates. You need to understand each other mindset. It's very important. That's how they see the world and how they will face the challenges of entrepreneurships at the same time. If not, then I think going solo is much better than having difficulties with the difficult partners.
Welcome back, everybody. Rich Brubaker, founder of Collective Responsibility, here today with another episode of the Mission Driven Podcast. Through this podcast, I'm speaking with entrepreneurs, innovators, investors, the ecosystem of individuals who see the power of entrepreneurship and innovation as a way to solve the big challenge that we face. And for me, it really is about understanding that collective journey, figuring out how we get a little bit further together, and hopefully doing it together. And so with that, I'm extremely honored to be joined by Rahat Hossain, who is the founding partner of Network for Inclusive Care Entrepreneurs, a cross-regional network that brings together care entrepreneurs, innovators, and ecosystem actors to accelerate the development of the care economy. Previously to that, he was the co-founder of AYAT Care, which delivered home-based caregiving. So with that, Rahat, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Rich, for inviting me to your podcast.
All right. So as a starting point, I always love to ask this question. Who are you and what is the mission that you're on?
All right, I'm Rahat Hossain. I reside in Bangladesh, working in the care economy past 5 years. It's all started in 2020 when I was in the UK doing my master's in innovation management and entrepreneurship. I was a chief scholar. So during that time, we realized that there's a lot of things we should have done for this, especially for the elderly care, looking into the care economy. And that's where we sort of started the idealizations, and I started working in care economy since then.
Bangladesh it's a young country. Why did you fall upon the care economy at that point? Like, what was a gap that you saw in either child or elderly care that you thought, was your place to go?
So we have been discussing like where the gaps are, because before 2020 it was more less formalized in Bangladesh about the caregiving sector. But when we come back to Bangladesh, we were thinking like how we can actually build a formalized care sector in Bangladesh to serve the elderly population. Because by 2050, like 20% of our total populations will be elderly. And we wanted to tackle that because the situation is quite in depth. And so there's a big gap regarding the skills need for the elderly care that's who will be taken care of. So we were looking into that angle as well. There was a more informal caregivers were providing services. And then we came in, we were working on the build like skilled workforce, how we can actually connect them with the clients, creating a platform where they can actually apply for jobs, and we are connected with the clients as well.
I'm curious, like, what is the background to the care economy when it comes to Bangladesh? Like, the gap that you saw, was it that, say, families were kind of starting to move away from like the families take care of their own family members, and so using, the government infrastructure, or was it a problem with the government infrastructure that you saw, like say in the lower end of this market? Like, what was the mega trend, or what were the trends that were underlying like this change that you saw needed to be addressed, or that were creating these gaps that you saw?
So, in Bangladesh, 70% of medical services we have to pay from our own pockets. So, same goes for our care services as well. If we need a caregiver, we need a nurse service, or we need a nanny at home, we need to pay it for ourselves. And what we have seen an opportunity is that we have huge number of youth populations who are looking for like jobs, or they are looking for a way of income. And we are looking into elderly population, which is growing currently, right? So we were connecting these two dots into how we can build this. There is a couple of, we have seen some researches has been done, but nothing was moving forward so fast. But after 2020, it was moving so fast. We knew like this is a sector that's need a proper way of doing things, like build a business, work on the policy, advocacy, working with the government, and also like UN agencies as well.
Now, that speed of need, if I were to summarize it, you say it wasn't keeping up. Is that in relation to the challenge that was faced in Bangladesh, or was that in relation to what you see elsewhere in the world? Like, you were in the UK studying, like, were you just saying like, okay, our industry is behind other industries globally, or was it our industry is behind what is needed locally?
So if you look into Western world, they are quite ahead from us actually. What we have seen in Bangladesh, we are it's just the introductory site right now. We are trying to build things right now. It's not in a mature stage yet because we are now realizing these things. People used to trying to figure out that there is a need, but how I'm gonna go for those needs to be met, right? But the problem was like what we have seen because we are becoming more nuclear families. We used to be very living in extended families, but now nuclear families they need more support for the parents. At the same time, now parents like young parents both need to work, so these are the gaps we have seen. It was very generically starting to coming up. It was not like what we have seen like vastly change. First, we thought like caregiving as a needs for probably this need for from a very elite family backgrounds, like they are seeking caregiving. But what we realized, like most of the corporates who are in a mid level or senior level leaderships, they are seeking those services as well. Females' participations due to the caregiving is quite difficult. We have seen like women, they are leaving their jobs because their parents are old or they have to take care of their in-laws or their children are young, they have to take care of them. So the female participation in the work was going to like, it was like going for decrease at that time. And we saw that in Bangladesh as well, and it's reflecting worldwide. Like women's participation in the workforce is going down due to these caregiving responsibilities.
You mentioned we a few times. Who is we when you're getting started?
Okay, I was quite lucky to work with two of my partners, Hasinaman and Nusataman. Worked before. We've been friends for a long time. And then I was working with them for some capacity. And then after I came back from the UK, we sort of thought about how we actually take care of this sector, like how we create impact for the youth, for the elderly populations, and how our innovative way to actually solve those challenges.
Okay. So you're kind of three friends. Had you worked together with them before? You mentioned?
Yes.
Okay. So you had some
for
work
some
experience.
certain of time, yeah.
Okay. So you had some work experience, you had a friendship there, you decided to come together. Did you at that time, and you shared a comment, at least you understood the challenges or at least an interest in the challenge. Early on, did you kind of say, okay, you are going to work on this and you're going to work on this? Or were you all kind of like working together as one unit and hadn't really diversified out the task at that point?
So at that point, because two of my partners, they're quite busy with the other business they have, because they are also director of a multiple business. So it came to me like I'll be the person who will be operating the business. And Nusrat Aman came as a CEO. She was working more on the visions. And the Tasin Aman also became the chairperson. He was looking into more like how we can actually connect more people with these businesses. What are the strategies? Because these two people, especially Tasin Aman, comes from a very business background, and he have built a couple of businesses which are quite successful.
So they already had successful businesses, and you're going to kind of start the new one. Was that a problem? I mean, and I ask this because I've seen this a half dozen other times. I think I've participated in one or two of these as well, where we talk like, okay, look, this is what we want to do, but this is time I have allocated. Do you think kind of like that's the right model to start, or like is there a pro and a con to that arrangement?
So definitely pros and cons are there. The pros is that you get access to people who already build businesses, who make it like scaled, because then you have access to resources, and also they have very good network. So those are the things where really came to hand. And also one of the agreement we had, like they also invested in the venture to group. So they were also putting a lot of money into that. But the cons was, I would say, it's because sometimes it's as a part of the operation, sometimes you don't see the struggle to build a business from the scratch. But I would say like these are the main pros and cons comes with these kind of partnerships.
Yeah, I think honestly, like when you mentioned that, I was thinking, I've seen this where in the best of times, it's like a really good board member. Like they're really active. And now they've participated. I mean, you mentioned that made investment. So they're a little bit more than a general board member, like, but they've made an investment and they kind of stay on the board as long as things are going well. But once they're not going well, then I've seen the worst of it can be they get very micromanaging and like, oh, what did you do wrong? And they're coming at it from an outside perspective, but they're trying to figure out like on the day to day. So I'm curious, like, was that an imbalance, or did they actually maintain like? I guess my question is like, through that process, did they have like any day to day, or like did they have any weekly responsibilities, or were they kind of like just outside and they're just trusting you to run this?
So the trust was a big part, I would say, because there was a trust that we always believe in. And two of them actually trusted me that I have the capacity to actually run it. But one of the things that we didn't have is a defined task for each of us, like what are the things. We were more meeting into like we're gonna have like a quarterly meeting or like bi-weekly meetings. Those are the things that we were doing for the markets, like updates. If anything that we needed for in terms of strategy or like in terms of access to some other resources, I would actually ask them to help me with those kind of things, and I would be more taking care of the daily activities.
Yeah, and again, like I think if the things are going well, then it's fine, right? Like even if we miss a meeting, it's okay because things are going well. Like it's not, and that's the thing. Like up front, it sounds really good to have those conversations. And I found it interesting that you actually did it. Like that's great because it's something that I never went through with. So like because I looked more at the cons than I did at the pros. So I'm curious. Okay, so that was the structure of the partnership. What happened? Like after that, like you started to build the product, build a team, launched to market. Like what were the early days like operationally, separate from say the partnership or the governance?
It was not easy because I don't have any caregiving background. My previous business that I had, it was critical link. I was working in emergency medical service, but not at providing services at a home setup. It was a different learning, like one of the things that I believe that if you want to build a business, you need to learn like hands-on. So I used to recruit caregivers. I used to build the service models, and I used to take them to the houses and talk with the clients to understand, like how the whole service works. And when I actually figured out like these are the models we can implement, I started slowly hiring people. The way this business started moving forward. So the early one was not easy. It took me almost a year to understand the market, how people react, how people look into the good quality services, and what are the quality they looks into caregivers. So those are the things was what's like I figured out in caregiving business, your main asset is your caregivers. If you recruit them well, you sort it out, you train them, and then you place them in at the houses. That's actually, like 70% of your work. 30% is the keeping the updates and everything.
So when you were talking with people early on in that first year, what were the conversations you were having? Like, was it with, beneficiaries or families who had the money, or you're just trying to figure like what services they want, and like what are like if you think back to that year, like what are two or three things that you learned through that journey? Because I think like I love the fact that you're not from the industry, but you're kind of tangent. That you don't have a full team, but you're running it. Like like what were the things that you were learning, and how much of that time was say learning from your future market or hopeful market, and how much of that was from other things like the internet or talking to other entrepreneurs?
So the difficulty was like the entrepreneurs. If you look into entrepreneurs, there was a very less entrepreneurs we actually found in the market. When I started these things, I have seen like caregivers who work as a caregiver in early on. They become sort of a business person who is just providing caregivers as a, like informally. In 2020 or 2021, there was like two, three companies who were running, like officially running caregiving businesses, and they were very secretive about the way that they were running the business. They were not sharing how the market is and how they're operating. It was kind of difficult to actually figure out like how they actually do work. But what we did actually, looking into the good models and good models that we found in, especially in the Asia, because we looked into Indian models, we looked into Singaporean and Malaysian models to know like how they actually have some similarities in terms of culture. So those are the things that we were researching. Second thing is we were talking with the people who require caregivers for their parents. What are the things your experiences are? How you sort of like, if there is any issues, what are the issues like faced, and how you want those things to be mitigated? So we did some survey, and took some interviews to understand the people's perspective, because in Bangladesh, what I figured out, like if it's any of the businesses, especially in the service or product, like we need to understand like the actual need of the people. And first of all, that when we started this business idea, we thought like we're gonna have like mobile applications. We're gonna, like connect people through the mobile phone and applications. People will get all the information from their app. They will get all the updates. But what we understood that that time it was not needed. People were happy to look into their WhatsApp, communicate through their WhatsApp. So that was quite interesting to learn that we don't need to invest mobile application right away or technology right away. We can sort of figure out like how we are building this business, because it's in a health sector, it's all about service, how you make people feel about themselves and how you actually being supportive to them. So now we have mobile application after 5 years running that, because we were like, if we build it in 2020, it would have been waste of money, because the product would have come out would have not served the people. It would have only served our ego that we wanted something called technology. So we didn't go in there, and I really appreciate, because Tasin was telling me like, do you really need to have technology, or is it something that we needed as like a jewelry that's you're wearing? And then we had some debates. It was healthy debates, and then we like, okay, let's stop their thoughts. Let's build a business first, and then we'll see if the technology is needed. Right now, it's technology needed, because we went to serve like 10,000 people at that time. We were talking like now.
No, I think that's a great approach. I built a few technologies, and I realized that it's very easy if you're early in to over engineer the product because you don't know exactly what the product should do, and then what you end up doing is like spending time trying to figure like why is it not working and peeling stuff back out of it, right? Whereas if you've already built the whole platform, you're very clear like this is where the technology can solve the gap, this is where it can solve the gap. You can build it more naturally into as you're growing, and as you mentioned, you can save a lot of money because the build out would have been one thing, but then the ongoing operation, you have to have people and servers and updates and all. It just becomes a cash sinkhole pretty quickly. Things are going well. They're building out over 5 years. You mentioned 140 kind of contractors, 16 on staff. So does that make the business profitable? Are you still kind of breaking even? Have you validated? Is this 140 plus 16, so 160? Is that like the validation that your idea was right and now it's go to scale? Like what does that mean for you?
We actually tried a different approach in Bangladesh, a different innovative idea. This is why we ran the caregiving business for 5 years. It was not. It was only 3 years, because we started from late 2022 that we started providing caregiving services. But first 1.5 years, we thought about a business which is called preventive care. So if a person who is living at home independently, the person needs, like, they might have like blood pressure issues or diabetic, and they need some guidance. So we used to send nurses at home, teach them how to have it like live healthy, and we wanted to control like how they can manage their diabetic or blood pressure and any sort of other activities. And also these nurses work as a companion as well. They used to talk with them, they used to go to park or rooftop to walk. We tried for 1.5 years, and what my learning was like, we were at that time, that's this solution, like it was quite ahead of the time, because now I have seen like people are really needed these kind of solutions. But at that time, people didn't understand like how this is going to impact. When we are providing caregiving services, if someone had a operations and after that like they need like 3 months of caregiving and they need a post recovery care, and then they are like they can be living independently after 3 months, like young children can see their parents are recovered. But it's a when this is an ongoing process, like they have to manage the diabetic and hypertension. I can't say like your diabetes will be, yeah, it's gonna be gone after 1 year, but I can maintain it. And sometimes people do not see that we are preventing a lot of other incidents would have actually triggered for a medical needs. So then we actually pivot. We pivot to then we saw like, okay, we need to go for a patient care because this is too early for us. Still, we kept it, the whole model. We're not providing the currently, we kind of like a pause there. But after that, like we are also looking into if we will be, implementing those things in the future.
You're the operational guy. You've been in front of all these people, talking to them directly. Your co-founders are kind of more outside of it. What was that dynamic as you're having these discussions? Like, how did that play out in your conversations with your co-founders? Did they just kind of accept everything that you said? Were they pushing back? Did they come with their own ideas? Like, because I can imagine, like, even if you have a core team all together, you're trying to figure out what you're seeing and what's real and what's not, and where we should focus or where we shouldn't. And then you have these two co-founders come in, like, kind of on an occasional basis. Like, how did that relationship play out, or how do those discussions, good, bad, and otherwise, take place?
It was, like in the boardroom, it's never been easy for any of us because someone invested time and energy, someone invested their money, someone invested their trust on someone. So the dynamics is different because three of us looking in the business in three different ways, like how we are moving forward. I think in a partnership, this is important to have three perspective as well, because then it helps you to look at the situation in a different angles. At the same time, I have like felt sometimes like, okay, I am doing all those things, but like I am where I am. It's taking to the another level takes a lot of other efforts, like a lot of team members need to be included if we are ready for that investment or not. Those kind of debates are there always. And I think we always comes to one conclusions like how we want to see this to move forward. So they have been quite this is like challenging board meetings, but afterward we were always knew like what are the things we should achieve throughout the year to actually achieve those kind of things.
Did you often come away exhausted from those, or exhilarated and kind of like validated from them, or a mix?
When you're sitting in that, like some of the board members are sitting in the board, some of them are working with you. It's always kind of mixed because three of us has three different roles. Like Nusrat Aman was not, she's a CEO, but she has other ventures to look onto, and she couldn't like give full time in here. And it was accepted, and we agreed to that because she's busy. For the Tasin Aman, like for the partnership, we knew like he has big companies to manage, so he will just come in the board meetings or monthly meetings to know like exactly what will happen to do. These are the actually complicated. It gets sometimes complicated because you're trying to make people to understand like the real challenges that you face over the time to implement those things. At the same time, like you also kind of feel like the expectations people are having on you. That's a huge. I will not say this is a huge burden. I would say that's a trust that you inherited from them, and it's became like something that you want their trust to feel like, okay, you trusted me with this and I am taking care of it. So those kind of feelings is difficult to deal with sometimes. Like you come out from the meeting, you're like, oh man, I have done these things, but in terms of how people are looking into it, maybe they are not being happy about the outcome of the business. So these things comes up, and I think it's a very common board meeting situation in any business, any startup, and I think a lot of startup they yell at you, they like cards on you. things like that would never happen between us. We were always being very gentle when we were talking about these things. Yeah.
We're back. All right. So in those conversations, actually, you mentioned trust and like that emotion, and I'm curious, like when they're trusting you, that's all good. But I've been in a lot of conversations where I feel like, well, wait a second, why don't you trust me? I'm the one doing all the work. Like, was that like the problem that you would take away sometimes from these? Is like, even if it's a constructive conversation, maybe the emotions come involved. Like, was that ever an issue, or were you able to balance that out over, appetizers and dessert?
um, so we always have like two meetings. One is like official board meetings. Another we would do right after that meeting. We're just gonna cool off, like because when the build meetings happens, we have a lot of Excels, a lot of presentations, a lot of discussions, and it's in a time bound. We try to figure out things, and then we will have another meeting. It's more like a casual settings because like there this kind of meeting that's gonna have like tensions, and it's a healthy tension that you should have. But when we're sitting in the casual like settings, you kind of like you talk in a different like because these are the like three of us actually invested a lot of time, a lot of effort, and everyone just wants to justify it by their time and money they invested, right? So which is very I think that's very justified for the all of us to have that. And the second meeting is always will be like, like we come down, we talk about it, like, look, this is other thing that I am trying to figure out. Um, Over the time, there might be, might feel like people are disappointed, but like deep inside, like we all started together. And I don't think like challenges shouldn't be changed how we started these things. And one of the things that we always talked about, like why we started, it was the business was never meant to be for us. Like it was meant to be the change the sector, creating the sector as a more standardized in the market. Because we wanted to be the key player in the market who would be the name for changing the caregiving sector, changing the policy, how the service will be delivered, what are the standard of the skills people should have. We always go back to that because, when you are focusing on the bigger picture, it's changed the perspective of what you're doing right now because you're working for that. So we kept reminding ourselves like, look, what we wanted to do this year doesn't have to like it have to reflect the big picture that we want to see, not always like how we were looking into the business terms.
So I think that's actually a very mature approach. Like I think if I think back to my 20s, I could actually take those challenging conversations more emotionally, and I might not give that second meeting a chance, right? Like we're just not getting along, but like actually like cool down. We're all on the same mission. We see things perhaps differently, and maybe I could have said a little bit differently, right? Like, but at the end of it, like you're all trying to work together against the same challenge with the same vision, right? Like I think like that, as long as you can remind yourselves of that on a regular basis, I think that helps the overall outcomes going forward. Like you can learn how to take advice from individuals or insights or preferences or disagreements with that broader context in mind. Be like, look, I'm doing the best I can. It's a day-to-day thing. I'll keep that in mind for next quarter.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It is something that we have been working for the last 5 years. So I think that it's sometime, like when we are early 20s or even 30s, I think sometimes we take it very emotionally. And I am an emotional person. And, like sometimes I would say like my emotion gets better of me in terms of business decisions sometimes, like sometimes you are invested all of your emotions, all of your time, your sights, and it becomes very personal at one point about the whole business, how you look into the business, because the business actually reflect of yourself. Like your leadership actually reflect in the business. And people, when they comes into the leadership, like workplace, they can see how the culture is because the leadership kind of sort of, like build up culture. So I always see the business as like one person's personal affections toward the business, the mission that person is carries. That shows how the business is growing or how it's actually being handled.
Well, the other way I'll take it is if the whole world is against you, the market's not aligning, the stakeholders are competitive, whatever. You want to feel like at least together you're trying to support each other through this time, right? Like there's got to be that internal element. Like, yeah, we're getting killed here. Let's help each other.
Uh, any entrepreneur, I would not say business person, entrepreneur, they have to be really stubborn because they know, like, one of the things that I have seen, like entrepreneurs, they can see like down the road, like what's this business going to look like. They have this vision and they kind of see like this venture will be reach this level. And but sometime what we have seen like in the market as well as other people, they don't see align with you sometimes, like because they can't see that far. And it's very difficult because like where we are heading and describing, even though sometimes people do not feel in the same way. Some people will feel like, oh, this is crashing so early. Some people like you're changing your path so many times, or your growth plans looks like some random things are happening. But in your head, like this is not random. This is gonna be land in a one client for this to grow. So I think this is very important. Like even though things are, like if we go for Elon Musk, like if he didn't believe that the rocket will go to the Mars, it wouldn't be happening. So I think these are very important to have those things.
All right, my man. Now, the reality is that things kind of fell apart in the partnership and that you decide to make. Is it a full exit or a partial exit?
So we didn't have a full exit. It's a partial exit we have. Like especially because we are in a good terms. Even though I'm not working as a operationally. I'm not working there, but it was a good way actually saying the operations how it would be running. And one of the things that we did is that we took time to recruit someone who will be leading the operation. And also the board was something that's what I keep the vision. So that's how we divided those things. Because, like one of the things that's happens is that we sort of looking in a different perspective of the life, like working in 5 years, how I look into my career, how I want to do these things, and others have like their own other plans. Yeah.
Right. Which is, I mean, it's normal. Like you think about 5 years, like that's actually an extremely long time to be partners, and even to be committed to one thing, unless you have like, and that itself's like, okay, I've gone through this, I've built it. Maybe from if you're looking at this from a career standpoint, I'll be like, all right, I'm done. Next thing, or it could be, hey, actually, I see something different in this model. You see something different, so we shouldn't be like you can, that can go down a really nasty road, right? Like you start to fight all the time. So what do you think? Like it sounds very amicable. You kind of step out. You can focus on things that are important to you. They can take the business forward. What was like in your mind? Like what were some of the key reasons for you to say, okay, look, now is that time to exit instead of to sit here and try and work it out?
One thing I knew, like building a company, I'm not gonna build my whole life, right? So as an entrepreneur, you wanted to build different things. That's the excitement we always gonna have. Like we have this idea, like I had Kara's idea, we implemented this, and then I moved to the next one. That is always my one thing that I really wanted to do. Like it's a lot of ideas comes into my mind, and I was like, okay, I need to try this and this and this. But the time commitment is a big thing because when you are building a business, you need to do like 12 to 14 hours per day to work on that to build it. And from 2021, one of the things that I have been focusing on that building the system, because one of my biggest fear it was like, what if I fall sick for 14 days? And if I cannot join to the office or take the decisions, how this is going to move forward? I know that like my partners can take care of it during that time, but they are not full time in the operations. So they might not know like some of the details are really needed to be taken care of. So from 2021, I have been building those processes and I have been training my team members. Like these are the decisions you're going to take. This is how we do it. And we're going to document it, those things. And we also have a SOPs to actually follow. So in 2025, later on that time, when I decided to move out from the eye care, one of the reasons was like I wanted to build something that's I would feel proud of and build something that people would be benefited. Because eye care, where we are now, it's already the foundation is there already. It just need so where we are right now is like we need some experts to take it forward, like all the eight players, if you bring it in. Slowly, that was the whole plan. Like slowly, this eight player will take over some of the function. They will take it to the scale, and me slowly actually move out from the phase as well. So that was the always the dream that I had. And in 2025, I decided at that time like that was the right time for me actually move out from the operations and actually start something else or look into other opportunities that might be there that I should be working on.
So you had always kind of had this idea, or did you think, or did you have an idea early on that I'm going to do this forever? This is going to be my thing. I'm going to have it. And then kind of somewhere in the middle, you realize like, actually, it's not my thing. And what I want to get out of it, I'm not going to get out of it.
Not really. Me and Tasin and Nusrat has been talking about it. Like, we wanted to build a business, but we wanted to bring good people who are very smart in the sectors, especially some departments, and they would be taking care of it rather than us to sitting there all the time. So because one of the co-founders has to work in a full time to like like from vision to actually executions, it was needed one of us to actually work full time. And I think that was a time for me as well to reflect like how I look into my career to look forward. And I figured that that was the right time to actually step down from the positions and let the other people to take care of it.
That's interesting. I mean, and hey, I mean, in a way, you've kind of become them, right? Like they weren't full time in it. They were kind of a little bit separate. You helped build it for 5 years. Then it sounds like you built the leadership to come in behind it, which is something that most entrepreneurs don't do a very good job of. To be like, they think about that a month before they're leaving, not years before they're leaving. So I'm curious, like, did you hire people specifically because you hoped that they would take over from you? Or did you just get really lucky in who you hired and then you developed them over time and then they took over from you?
So we have been talking about it, me, Tasin, and also from 2024. Like we wanted to bring someone who are, like when you're an entrepreneur and try to do everything, you kind of sort of have ideas of a lot of stuff, how to do things, but you're not expert of a specific things. So we kind of realized it's a moment for us to actually acknowledge. So we in 2024 we had a board meeting, and we understood like these are the challenges that are like not challenges is like these are the functions we need to have people from outside to join us. And before even I was leaving, we were having interviews to figure out like who would be best fit for that positions to move forward. So a couple of things we look into, like someone who is very good at sales and client acquisitions, someone who has some idea about like good idea about like marketing and brand building. Those kind of things we were looking into because in terms of service development that have been done, that's that don't need it to be reinvented the wheel all the time. So we all just needed like someone who will take it to the forward in terms of scale.
I just find that fascinating because you're kind of, in a way, it reminds me of some people I know who they're really good with the startup, the grind of getting something set up to build the initial team, to prove and validate the idea. But then, we've always had these founders who kind of hang on to the role for too long. Like once it gets to process, they're not necessarily the best people for it. And if they're not the best for it, they're rarely the people who are going to admit that they're not the right person for it. But it sounds to me a little bit like you don't like the process of that's stable. You like the build, but then once it kind of converts over to like it's just an expansion of the wheel, you're kind of like, this is not my thing. I have another idea. And so you built in the person who has that process or who enjoys being a traditional CEO.
Like one of the things that I read recently where sometime co-founders became the barrier of the business growth. because they're too stubborn to actually move out from the positions. One is the fear of power, like I'm going to lose authority over the business. Then also they would fear is like if I move out, maybe the next person will not take it the business the way I want it always to be, right? So what I have seen is that I always acknowledge those things, like things that I know good, things that I don't know good. I would acknowledge those things. Either I will try to learn those skills or I would ask some experts to do it. In terms of iHeart, what we have seen is that where we were now, we need those people to come on board to take it in a different level. I didn't want to be that, like holding those things, because it's always business always needs some new bloods to implement new things. And I really wanted to have like new ideas to implement it in art care and see in a different perspective. If someone comes in, has a different idea, they haven't done something else in a different way, those things might be good for the business, the how I wanted to like run it. And one of the things is that I spent almost like a 3 months to mentor that person, like train her to look into the business, how I envision it. I try to give her, like the how we have done it. Still now, like we are connected. Like I give her like things that if she's a struggle, like if you were there, how you have been thinking about it, the situations, how you would have, like mitigate these challenges if you were in operations. So these kind of things we still going on. But in terms of operations, that 3 months was, like I was spending like full day with that person to equip all the things that I had in the way that I wanted to build this business. And also one of the things that I am proud of that we built this 3 years of growth trajectory where it's gonna be implemented and the business will be taken over for the next phase.
All right. Speaking of next phase, you have founded the Network of Inclusive Care Entrepreneurs, or NICE. What do you, I mean, is this your thing that takes you through to retirement? Is this the next 5 years? Like, how are you approaching this? And do you have co-founders as well as part of this process?
Yes, for this, I have three more co-founders. One from Pakistan, Ahsan, from India, Palani, and from Thailand, I have Adrian. So four of us actually build this. This is actually not a company. This is associations of care entrepreneurs. So what we have did is that we work with the UNMN to build this network where we face kind of like when I started at care, it was quite difficult to actually find people who are actually being care entrepreneur and seeking the helps from them to understand like, hey, like these are the challenges, how I'm going to move forward. Then we wanted to build this kind of a network where we as a care entrepreneurs helping others care entrepreneurs to move forward. Like if someone wants to be start a business, how they should done it, what are the regulations, and we are trying to recruit like a regional experts. Like if someone from Singapore, like a care entrepreneur, will be mentoring other care entrepreneurs from the Singapore, or someone from the Malaysia will do it from Malaysia. So it's for now we are focused on Asia Pacific region. So we are now currently doing like mentorship. So people will be joining as a mentorship, and they be like some people will be mentored, some others will be mentees, and they will be having such sessions where they will be talking about the care businesses.
Awesome. Now, I mean, yeah, you mentioned it's an association, it's not a company, but you're still co-founders, right? Like you're still going to have to build the process together. You're still going to have meetings together. So, how are you going about this round differently? Like, are you making sure that they're all equally giving money and time? Is it similar to before? Like some give time, some give money, or what? Like, how is this round different?
It's interesting. This is the third time I'm having partners. The first one I had just one partner. uh, here we have like four of us, and what we have seen is that we actually equally divided our tasks. So we came as executive partners. We said like, look, all of us are busy. We're gonna have specific jobs and responsibilities to fulfill. You're going to take care of some of the portion of the organizations. I'm going to take care of the other part of the organization. So we have a details task that we have to deliver, and we kind of like meet each month to see like where we are right now. So we divided this time. It's this time like we are invested equally. We're invested equal time and effort. Sometimes like work nature wise, like you might have to spend more time, but in terms of work deliveries, we divided. Four of us work on those things. Like we divided in terms of the strengths that we have. Like me from the operations, other person has the like more on a governance side, another person's more on a finance side. So we divided tasks the where we our strengths are.
Awesome. Awesome. And what's the goal here? Like you're going to formalize this into a global NGO, or you're just going to create this network and make it something online that people can subscribe to, say training materials? Like what's the vision for the model?
So the mission for the model is this is will be registered. We are in the process of actually registering in Thailand as a nonprofit organizations, and we're gonna build this platform under the same name, and we're gonna offer to services to the others. So this is the three services that we wanted to offer right now. One is like a research, because we have a network of care entrepreneurs, different countries. So we wanted to collaborate with them to have research on caregiving, care economy. Second thing is that bringing investors into those trusted companies. So we will be facilitating those things. Like, again, these are the showcase of the companies we have. If you like to invest in these companies, like these are their portfolio, their financial modeling, you can invest in there. So we'll be facilitating those as well. And third is we wanted to have these services where you can take one-on-one sessions with any of the care entrepreneurs to understand how to scale your businesses as well.
Mm. And so with that in mind, what would your, at this point, definition of success be for this platform or this organization?
For what we wanted to see is that we became the facilitator for the care entrepreneurs in Asia Pacific, where we actually facilitate them to actually grow in terms of business, in terms of as an entrepreneur, in terms of policy and advocacy. So those three we wanted to focus on. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right. So as a last piece of last question, what advice would you give to other first-time founders? You mentioned you've had this 3 times you had co-founders. The first one was 1, the second time was 2, and the third time is 3. So you're kind of adding a co-founder with each one. What are 2 or 3 tips you'd give to, say, a first-time founder who's maybe in talks with a co-founder or is looking for a co-founder? Like what are 2 or 3 things they should know to make that partnership, that relationship better?
To be honest, partnership, any kind of partnership or co-founding a business, it's required a fast is it's we in a business world it says it like it's like a marriage. You need to go to dates, you need to understand each other mindset. You know, like if there is a shortfall, this person will be beside you, not against you, right? So that's very important whom you are actually dealing with, because if your partner being not being supportive in terms of your difficult times, this is a red flag for the partnership. So I believe like people should know each other more. If you want to do something, I would say people should, for Tasin, Nusrat, and me, we how we kind of bonded is that we were being friends. Second, that we worked for 9 months. Like I worked for their business as a business developer managers who look into their businesses. So they knew like the skill set that required for me to actually build something. So that was the bonding in there. So we worked together to understand like how the dynamics gonna work. For anyone who are looking into care, like co-founding with something, I would say like they should have like a 3 to 6 months work plan, and they try to see if how they actually deliver and how they actually moving forward together. What at that time they should actually look into good time and bad time, because One thing I believe is the success has many fathers, but when it's not success, nobody wants to take the responsibilities. So it has to be in a that way. And like what's worked for people. Like if someone thinks like, okay, I need people who doesn't have to do anything. They just have to invest and be my sleeping partner. That's fine. If someone was like, no, I need someone to hustle with me, then they should be asking themselves like what kind of co-founder I need. So it's very important to have like co-founder persona like we do for our customers. I think co-founder persona is really important because if there is a struggles in a mindset, it's very difficult because skills you can hire people, but mindset is difficult to actually change people. So I believe it's a 2% is very important. That's how they see the world and how they will face the challenges of entrepreneurships at the same time. If not, then I think going solo is much better than having difficulties with the difficult partners.